It's just authentic conversations.
Authentic.
What we're
That's
here
right.
for.
Yeah, I think the first episode you had somebody, or maybe it was the second one, where they were stroking their dog or their cat, and I was like, oh, like that's actually a great idea. Like, because the for podcasting, sometimes I'll listen, but sometimes I'll watch like the video version. And if there is some like visual element that is different that I'm not getting from the audio only, like that will entice me to do the watching. So like
Mhm.
if you know, future iterations of this, like you can target the audience that wants to watch other people pet their animals while being interviewed.
Oh,
That can be the
I love
demographic.
that little insight that our audience is learning potentially in this moment that if they tune in, there may be surprises, maybe kittens, puppies, or who knows what you'll find on the video version of ADHD Career Stories podcast. In fact, if you're listening to this right now as an audio, it might be worth just popping on the video to see where Rory and I are. I am
Yeah.
here in Los Gatos, California. Rory, would you like to share where you're
I
located?
am in Chicago, and if you are on the video, you can see this lovely artwork by my mother, Sally Marsh Hagland. Um, Also, that one in the background, and then I'm kind of trying to hide, but my husband and I did these two, like, you know, paint night things that I'm less proud
Oh,
of, so I'm trying to cover them a little bit, but they'll probably see them as I move
I
around.
love that. I love that we have
Yeah.
the artistry here. Thank you for sharing the beauty. Um, so I guess we'll just dive in about some of your jobs so people can learn what experiences you've had at work.
Yeah. So my undergraduate background is in linguistics and Spanish translation with a minor and specialty in teaching English to speakers of other languages, or TESOL. Um, have I been fully employed in either of those? No. Uh, for many people, your education is very different from your career. I have worked teaching English to adults, teaching Spanish to adults, Spanish to children, English to children in public school, like rec center, community center classes, um, grade school in Mexico, uh, yeah, public school in Chicago. Um, I have always wanted actually to do some translation. I've done some volunteer interpreting. I have more recently worked in the financial tech space. My company, I worked at a startup that got acquired by a larger company that then got acquired by a big bank. And yeah, that kind of covers the spectrum.
Thank you for sharing that. It's fun also just to hear personally the linguistics background, the teaching English background. Like we didn't necessarily know that or when we first connected. And
Yeah.
yeah, I similarly had some teaching and English experiences and language experiences, but not full time, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. Well. Um, so one of my favorite things to talk about is the favorite parts. So as you think of the different roles, what are some of the things that you enjoyed about one of the jobs that comes to mind?
I've always really enjoyed working on teams with other people. I'm definitely an extrovert. I get a lot of energy from working with other people and kind of generating ideas together. Um, I also just really enjoy learning. So when I was I also worked for an educational nonprofit that was teaching English classes to local immigrants and refugees in the Salt Lake City area in Utah. And when I was there, we had people from many different countries coming through our English center to register for classes. And so I would learn about languages that I honestly had never heard of
Mhm.
and countries. And that gave me the chance to do, like the briefest Wikipedia search to understand, oh, like I wanted to know a little bit more about Bosnia and their political history.
Yeah.
Um, And so just picking up little facts here and there, I think that's why I've struggled to hone in on one specific career or industry because I'm interested in psychology, I'm interested in languages, sociology, uh, yeah, and lots of different topics.
Yeah. So finding there's different ways to meet that. Um, yeah, it's fun to be part of, I guess, the I don't know, international and immigrant community because you just are constantly learning and connecting with people. I enjoyed being part of my I think it was the adult education center at my university because people are wanting to expand their education. They're coming in from all different places. And so your experience reminds me of that. So we talked about some of the fun things. Then there's also some of the challenges. And one of the things you mentioned is like the team. And I've noticed personally, like when I'm on a team where we all feel like, I don't know, aligned and shared vision, it's really energizing. Um, and then when there's stuff that's like, I don't know, harder or tedious or administrative, trying to keep that on track can be challenging. So, what has been challenging in some of these roles?
Yeah. So the times that I have taught more formal in a more formal classroom setting, that solo time in preparing a lesson plan has
Oh
just
man.
been the most awful torture for me because I know enough about education and the process of learning that I know there's lots of different ways to present material, have students practice, assess, that it's overwhelming to like
Yes.
narrow in, okay, what type of activity are we going to do and in what order? And like the black and white thinking that sometimes plagues me makes it difficult to say, okay, we're going to choose this because there's always too many options, but there must be one ultimate correct,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
answer of how to order these activities and which one. And so much self-doubt of like, well, I could do this, but if I spent like another hour researching, I bet I could find something even better, and I really should do that.
Oh
So
my God.
just the shame spiral and self-doubt from that really. And I didn't have, my background was not curriculum design, or I didn't really practice. I think I had to submit like 2 or 3 lesson plans in
Yeah.
my teaching English as a second language program.
Hmm.
Um, but I had time and I had examples, and somehow switching to teaching eighth graders how to speak Spanish, enough time had passed that that skill wasn't as practiced. And
Yeah.
so it was just really overwhelming, and I didn't have anyone to assist. And
Oh.
so the time would just expand. Like
Yes.
if I had 2 days to plan a 40-minute lesson, I would spend the entire 2 days
That's,
trying to
I think
plan.
that's why I had to leave because I didn't have um, the skill set and the anxiety that came with lesson planning. Um, that, yeah, you could just spend the entire time becoming more perfectionist about it and like
Yeah.
trying
And
to,
then avoiding, knowing that like this is the most urgent thing I could be doing. So I'm avoiding, I'm not eating, I'm not necessarily like taking care of, maybe I need to call, make a doctor's appointment. Well, that's not the, I need to be working on this lesson plan. Yeah, exactly. For those audio only, Christina is showing her list of, I can't remember your title for that, but
things I can do to feel better when I'm at my
exactly,
computer hyper focusing on something. I need to
exactly.
remember to drink water, eat something, be still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
And
man.
and because I actually really enjoyed, like, once that planning was over and I showed up to actually teach, I had a blast. I loved it. I
I
loved
know.
the energy of the classroom and the excitement
Yeah.
in, helping somebody who might feel frustrated that they can't quite conjugate something right, but then they like are able to communicate. And that was really,
Yeah.
so the balance of, man, it feels like this lesson planning part, I'm such a failure, I can't do that aspect of it, but I do really like this. And I left teaching to go work for a startup
Hmm.
in the finance world, and there was just a lot of shame for not having continued. I only taught for 3 months in that
Yeah,
school.
similar. I felt embarrassed having left. Um, and I shifted into tutoring where it didn't require as much, I don't know, I guess large scale curriculum uh, and lesson planning and just the like to walk into a classroom. It was fun when I was ultimately there, but it was also just exhausting. And I just felt inadequate in what I was delivering as well. So yeah. So, oh, we do have a little visitor here. Um, did I see a little cat behind there?
My dog stretching,
Oh, your dog.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so then let's dream a little bit. What do you think makes for like a I don't know a fun and satisfying career for you? What sort of strategies, I guess, could you put in place, or have you put in place? You mentioned teams. What else makes it work for you?
Yeah.
And it's also in process, right? It's always in
It's very much
process.
in process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think right now I'm a little bit stuck in finding that black and white thinking again of like, must find the most perfect fit for my interests and my skills,
Yeah.
as opposed to just trying things.
Hmm.
And I'm in a place now where I can kind of experiment and figure out what feels right. But I have a little bit of inertia and trying to just get started.
Hmm.
Um, and I think something that's been helpful is identifying, okay, what are the um like interests or like what's the phrase, like itches that I need to scratch.
Yeah.
So like language learning, but also language expression.
Mhm.
Um and I've reached out to a couple community organizations
Yeah.
about volunteering and just trying to figure out ways that I can introduce more of those interests,
Hmm.
and still trying to decipher like what makes for a job and career versus, for a long time I felt like uh things that were positive for the universe
Yeah.
were only meant to be volunteer things because I had negative experiences in the nonprofit world and public education. And
Hmm.
so it's like you can't do things you love for work because either you work at it too hard that it loses its, specialness,
Oh,
or like it's just poorly managed. And so you can't really uh it's better just to have a job that pays the bills and do the things you want that bring joy outside of your,
yeah.
work. And I'm trying to like keep the lessons that I've learned,
Yeah.
avoid, potential pitfalls. Oh yeah, there's my dog. But also being open to possibilities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess it does feel really good when there's the alignment. And I know from my own experience it's possible. I also know there are like, challenges and continual response, to make things work. But to have your energy and your interests like aligned primarily in your work is just like such a gosh, it's like so satisfying. Also the simplicity of it. It's just so nice to not have to like, here's the thing that I like have to do, and here's the thing that I enjoy. So yeah, so thanks for bringing up these perspectives. Because we didn't talk specifically about like, I don't know, ADHD tips, but if you have any, I guess, suggestions before we hop off about something, any advice for someone who maybe a younger version of you was in, would you have anything to share there?
Um, so I haven't been officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I relate to some of the tendencies, and some of the like tips and tricks have been helpful for me. And I think advice I would give to myself or any person would be uh learning to recognize value in differences
Hmm.
that you find in yourself versus other people, as opposed to treating it as like I'm broken,
Oh,
because I think that's the conclusion that I've come to for a lot of ways that I feel different. And I guess the other piece is therapy can be helpful in working through the feelings of shame and brokenness,
Mhm.
but finding like either a coach or some type of finding systems that work for you to gain experiences breaking the like neural pathways that have concluded I am broken, I can't keep doing this, and building new experiences so that your brain can rewire and say like, oh, actually, I can do this. I just need to do it a slightly different way, and that's totally fine.
Oh,
But at first, that's kind of tricky.
yeah, I thank you for that reminder. It's yeah, when you have the experiences of the change, it's easier to, continue seeing yourself as capable of continuing in that positive direction and actually doing the things that feel hard, but from a place of appreciation um, for the differences is important. Thanks for this. We'll wrap up here.
Great. Thanks so much. Take care.